Hi, I'm Lisa Weil, the Executive Director of Great Education Colorado. Thank you for coming to this presentation about full and fair funding of our public schools in Colorado and how together we're going to get it done. Great Education Colorado, like so many other organizations around the state, has a vision of a Colorado where, through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language, identities, or the color of their skin, that every student graduates ready to lead their best life. And what Great Ed does to make that happen is we harness the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. So at this point, I want you to take a minute to think about if schools were fully funded, what resources would be available? How would your school be different? How would your experience as a teacher or a student or a parent be different if we fully funded our schools? What would that mean? What would you add? So I'm going to give you a minute to just think about that. You can stop this, pause it, and come up with your own answers. And we'll be back in just a second. So you may have come up with your answer to what would make a school fully funded, what resources would be available to ensure that every student can thrive, can succeed, feel seen, safe, supported. Recently, the state of Colorado, for the first time, commissioned a couple of studies to find out scientific studies to research what it would mean if Colorado were actually going to fully fund the schools. And what was found is probably pretty much in line with what your experience is. So, what's an adequacy study? It's a state specific, so it's all about Colorado scientific research into what resources are necessary to ensure that all students can meet Colorado standards, that all schools can meet the requirements of Colorado statutes. So, as I said, a couple were commissioned back in 2023, and the results came out in January of 2025. And we're going to talk pretty quickly about what they found. The study recommended that we need improved individual attention in a whole lot of different ways. The study found that class size in K through 3 should not be more than 15, and from there on through 12th grade, class sizes should average at about 25. There should be tutors in every school. There need to be more counselors and health professionals in every school. And it found that the more students who have special needs, whether it's special education, growing up in poverty, learning English as their language, that you need more of all those resources where the students have greater need. They found that students need additional time. And again, the learners with special needs or who are overcoming other challenges need more support and more time. So, extended day and summer school for students who have additional needs. The studies found that we need to be looking at the whole student. And so base support includes technology so that all kids have access to the technology that they need to prepare for our new economy, ever changing. And we need to make sure that there is programming electives so that the whole child can be addressed, so that kids can find themselves, whether it's in music or art or theater or sports, that kids need to have those things they love. And that means that they are more likely and able to thrive because of their connection to other teachers, to other students, and to areas of inquiry that really feed their souls. What we also found, what the studies also found, is that we need to pay teachers more and we need to pay more teachers. Right now, the workload of our teachers is overwhelming. What the studies found is that they need more support. They need to have other professionals addressing the needs of their students outside the classroom. And they need the support of instructional coaches, something that is just all too rare right now in our schools. And just one quote from one of the two studies: teachers are one of the most important resources in driving student outcomes, but Colorado's teachers are poorly paid and they are inequitably distributed, meaning that our rural schools and the way that our teachers uh, are distributed just doesn't mean that every student, no matter where they live, is getting the support they need. Now, the studies talk about what resources are needed, and that's the important thing. We're not talking about the dollar figure being the most important. The real factor here is, what do our students need in order to meet the standards that our state has set? But those two studies did do the calculation of how much we would need to add to our current school funding system, and that number ranges from 3.5 to $4.1 billion annually once it's fully implemented, which could take some time. But we now know what the North Star is. We now understand through scientific studies that what you probably came up with instinctively is truly what is needed for our students to thrive, for every student to thrive, which is our goal. So that's where we need to be. But where are we now? Well, this red line on this graph shows how Colorado compares to the national average in per pupil funding, all the way back to 1970. And as you see, although in the 80s we were above the national average, Colorado has continually fallen behind to the point that we are now $2,000 behind the national average in per pupil funding. So think about that for a second. If you are connected to a school, multiply the number of kids by about $2,000, and that's how far below we are if Colorado were getting a C, if Colorado were average. So not only are we far below the national average per pupil funding, that obviously has some impact. One of those impacts is that we literally have the least competitive pay for our teachers of any state in the country. What does that mean? That means that there is a 35% gap between what teachers make in Colorado and what they could make if they if they had a job for which they're qualified in any other profession. A 35%, what some people call martyr deficit, the martyr gap. And it's hard to maintain, to keep teachers in the profession and to keep teachers in this state. And now our per pupil funding, just to think about how we compare to ourselves, how we compare historically, we are now at a level of funding our schools, inflation adjusted, for 1989. That's our funding level right now. We are back to where we were almost 40 years ago. That was before computers. That was before the internet. That was before standards. That was before the cell phones and the social emotional needs that have risen among our students. So we are not now funding our schools as we need to in order to meet our goal of every student thriving. And I'm sorry to say it's going to get worse. We are in a cycle now of never ending cuts. Partly that's because of federal funding cuts to programs that the state has to pick up, like nutrition and healthcare. It's also about the fact that new federal laws regarding taxes have actually decreased by about $1 billion the amount of money that Colorado will raise this current year, because our income tax is pegged to the federal income tax. So when the federal government gives tax breaks, mostly to the wealthy, Colorado also gives those tax breaks through our state tax system. And the last point, the last reason that our schools are not recovering in financially and can't really get to adequacy or even to maintain that 1989 level is that we have put our tax system in the Constitution. The Because of the of Tabor, as you may have heard about, um, when our economy does well, um, our schools can't benefit from that. When our economy does badly, our schools do get harmed by that. And that combination over the last 30 some years means that that's one of the prime reasons that we have fallen behind the national average and have not been able to make up, just do anything more than keep up with the consumer price index inflation. Not to mention the fact that our for these last 30 years, that our schools have had to deal with much higher inflation and healthcare and pensions, et cetera. And so the buying power of our schools is behind where it was in 1989. And because of Tabor, we can't make meaningful changes to that unless we get a vote of the people, unless we get it done. So that's what's going to happen in Colorado. Never ending cuts to our schools unless we decide together to get it done in 2026. And that's what Great Ed and the Get It Done campaign is all about. We have this idea in Colorado, of it's a feeling of learned helplessness, that you see these myths on the left side. We can't do anything. There's just no money. The voters aren't going to support it. We just, this is just how it is. Yeah, we know we need more funding for schools, but here in Colorado, we just can't do that. We can't accept that. That's not okay in an affluent state like Colorado. We can afford to make it to get this done. We can't afford to have adequate funding for our schools so every student gets met where they are. And that's what we're doing together. We're empowering Colorado's champions like you for equitable and fully and fairly funded schools. So let's get it done. What does that mean? The Get It Done campaign brings together organizations and individuals like you, urging the legislature and the voters to take bold and concrete action to get to that North Star. We know what it takes, thanks to the adequacy studies and to your own instincts. We know what getting it done means. We know what the North Star is, of the resources that the adults in the buildings necessary to make sure that every student can thrive. We know what that is. Together, we're going to get it done. So far, we've got a great group of organizations that are a part of this, and we're always looking for more. And you'll have an opportunity to endorse at the end of this presentation. There's a video. I encourage you to grab that QR code and you can watch the video, or just go to the Great Education Colorado YouTube channel and you'll see a lot of content about the background of why we are in this position and what we can do together to get this done. Um, no matter what your background and the capacity and your bandwidth, there is a place for you in the Great Get It Done campaign. We have 4 different levels where you come in. We meet you where you are, the amount of time you've got, and the amount of experience you have in advocacy. We will meet you where you are, whether you're a change maker, a policy pathfinder, friendly fundraiser, and moving people to be action ambassadors. If you're interested in leading and creating a local team in your community, we will give you everything you need. We'll be with you every step of the way, and that's our promise to you, as we pull this together and in every community across Colorado start building local teams to get it done, because we can, if we believe we can. We've already won one victory, and this is just something that we were able to do. We got the Senate in a bipartisan manner to pass a resolution saying, we get it. We understand that we aren't where we need to be in school funding. We did the adequacy studies. They told us what's necessary, and it says that the The Senate is going to honor that investment that taxpayers made in those studies, and they will work to gain understanding about the findings and recommendations and develop a multi-year implementation plan to phase in those recommendations. We can't do it in 1 year, but we sure as heck can start working toward that, understanding what we need to get done so that over a number of years, we get Colorado to the place where we're doing right by our students. And so we had a bipartisan support for that in April. It was at our advocacy day. We'll have another advocacy day next year. We hope you'll join us. So here's where we are. The adequacy studies were commissioned in 2023. In fall of 2024, we got this Get It Done campaign started and started talking about encouraging and demanding that the legislature create a blueprint for student success that gets us from where we are now to that adequacy, to that North Star over many years. The studies were released in 2025, just January this year. We got that resolution passed in April, and we're working with the legislatures, and we are here now. Between May and December of this year, we are working with our legislators to start building that blueprint. We are building local teams and asking folks to get their legislators to come and learn, to see basically this presentation, to understand where we are and where we need to get, and to get your local teams, people really working together to get it done for our students. And then in 2026, we'll be working towards something on the ballot to make sure that we give the voters an opportunity to vote their values and decide what matters to them, to decide that we're going to get it done for our students. So here are a few opportunities. You can sign up and you can tell us where you think you are in that change maker to action ambassador scale that we showed you. Just this is the only commitment, is that you will start hearing about this and finding out ways that you can get involved. So that's a simple one. We don't fill up your inbox all the time. It's a pretty it'll just keep you informed and help you find where you are and what you want to do. The second thing that QR code is our Advocates Network, which meets the second Tuesday of every month to talk, to learn together, to listen, to hear what's happening in our communities, and to have ways to act together. So those are two great places to sign up. A couple more, please request a presentation. You can show this one, or we will come and present, or you can learn to be a speaker or somebody else in your community. But we will come and just get this orientation and inform your community about what can happen. And if you're part of a community group, a PTA, a book club, anything, a group of people who come together who care about public education and believe in its future, you can endorse the Get It Done campaign, and be part of this movement. So if you have questions, we have a fabulous staff member, Kristen Winuk, Kristen W. Be sure to use the W at greateducation.org, and you can just connect with Kristen and find out how you or your group or your community can get connected to this critical movement. If we think we can, we can. I hope you'll join us in making sure that we get it done for Colorado students. Thanks for watching.